It's been a while since I've been excited about a Marvel movie.
There's something wrong.
Sure, there are eye-catching Marvel content once in a while that I somewhat look forward to, but more often than not, I always end up disappointed, disheartened, unimpressed, and underwhelmed, feeling foolish for ever being excited for a Marvel movie again. I thought Thunderbolts was one of those movies. Despite loving the story of John Walker from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I found it hard to be excited for a Marvel Suicide Squad. Because the Black Widow movie was incredibly mid that I never found Yelena and Red Guardian interesting, and I literally forgot about Ghost since Ant-Man and the Wasp is a painfully forgettable movie. But the trailer somehow changed my mind. Promoting the names of the crew instead of the big Marvel logo like they usually do felt unique. And this unique promotion somehow gave me a mild hope that the movie could be raw, could be weird, that it could be different.
Stop.
Yes! Yes!
Marvel's Thunderbolts. It's far from perfect, and like other Marvel movies these days, the film somewhat feels incomplete and doesn't live up to its full potential. But unlike other Marvel movies these days, it's extremely passionate, extremely stylized, and it doesn't treat itself like a joke. Even without the Marvel brand, it's a good movie that doesn't feel like a waste of time when I walk out of the theater. But how good the movie was is not what I'm here to talk about today. There are already so many videos out there about how it saved the MCU. But what I really want to talk about is how the movie so successfully and so emotionally explores its mature themes. Right off the bat, we are dragged into Yelena's loneliness. Despite how many people she beats up, no matter how many buildings she explodes, she feels incomplete, she feels hollow. And her emptiness, void if you will, is something I believe we can all relate to. Whether it's the unforgettable loss of someone you truly valued or the challenge of finding a genuine human connection in this digitalized and busy, brave new world, we have all felt alone, longing to be rescued by some purpose in our lives. And unfortunately, we are all guilty of shoving that loneliness deep down in our poor hearts without realizing how much it can consume us, until it's too late. Thunderbolts doesn't hold back from exploring the theme of loneliness. Whether it's from a conversation between Yelena and Bob or Yelena's heartfelt confession of her misery to her father figure, the movie unwraps its theme of loneliness before it spears through our hearts that have been so dishonest about our feelings. Ourselves that's been so cowardly pushing down what we've been feeling for so long, as if that could help it feel a little better. As much as we suffer from loneliness, it's no secret that we also suffer from guilt. Whether it was your ignorance towards your loved ones or your lack of courage to stay, we have all done wrong, and as a result, locked ourselves in a self-inflicted prison of guilt. The funny thing about that prison is the fact that despite how easy it was to lock ourselves in, it's always and always will be so much harder to get out. Thunderbolt's depiction of guilt through John Walker is powerful. We have all once believed we were more, we have all once yearned to be great. The truth is, we still do. But more often than not, we end up being disappointed in ourselves. And as flawed men we are, we end up pushing the people who never asked us to be great. Because at that moment, you don't care how much you are loved by others. How could you, when you can't bring yourself to love yourself due to the sheer disappointment in you? This guilt is the look we see in John Walker when he, for a moment, lets his cockiness down as he looks at Yelena when Bucky mentions his wife. And we as an audience relate to him now that we know where his cockiness and passive aggressiveness comes from, his insecurity of his own guilt. But what's more impressive than the movie's exploration of loneliness and guilt is its deep exploration of trauma. I never knew about the Sentry except that he is one of Marvel's Superman. But the movie's deep exploration of trauma through the character of Sentry or Bob and the protagonist better with the literal personification of the void in Bob's own image is not something I ever expected from a Marvel movie. We all have things we don't talk about, things we cannot talk about. There are experiences and a series of emotions we can't speak out loud, and we suffer from them alone. Until these feelings, these emotions feel so detached from us, almost like it's its own being. You may think I'm generalizing a little too much here, but let's be honest. In today's society where we seldom even dare to expect an ounce of empathy from literally anyone, this is not a unique experience. Bob's history of substance abuse, self-loathing, nihilism, and childhood trauma is not unique to Bob alone. How many times have we locked ourselves in a prison of self-loathing in our absurd nihilism and abused ourselves just to give ourselves something to feel about the void we feel in today's world? But what's worse than the void itself is our attitude towards it, our desperate attempt to ignore it and push it down. But Bob's story tells us that it's not about pretending that part of you doesn't exist. It's about the courage to accept the empathy from others, the courage to admit that you don't have to fight your flaws alone. Maybe the movie wanted to criticize the core society of today, where nobody offers nor asks for any sort of empathy, I don't know. But all I know is that you may not bid despair, but you can always share hope. Thunderbolts, like I said, is far from a perfect movie. It's not even the best Phase 5 movie. Guardians of the Galaxy owns that spot. But while Guardians of the Galaxy has always felt like James Gunn's own grounded story despite its participation in major films, Thunderbolts finally feels like a good Marvel movie. The kind that makes you walk out of the theater engaged enough to be eager about the future of Marvel, relating to the characters, feel the passion behind the screen, feeling something. Of course, there are other so much better movies out there that deal with such themes, but Thunderbolts is a Marvel movie that deals with these themes while not being afraid to be a Marvel movie. Unlike the recent MCU movies which have told meaningless, spineless stories with no real message and no solid characters, Thunderbolts features majorly flawed characters who are growing and have a lot of healing to do. Characters as flawed as us, who have been constantly failing to be truthful about our own flawed emotions. And by doing so, it conveys a warm message which I never expected from a Marvel movie again. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe there is something to look forward to in the MCU. Maybe there is a little hope.